Hello everybody. Next up we trek up to the West Midlands, where we will be hosted by Aston Villa. Kick-off on Sunday is 4:30pm with coverage from Sky, so you can pay through the nose to hear that bloke go, "And it's live," as if people might complain if he didn't do it. Trains are all over the place in Essex, with Ingatstone, Grays, Leigh-on-Sea being just 3 engineering work locations of note. Check before you leave, etc. So, Villa then. Well, it's hardly been the most scintillating of seasons post-Grealish, has it? 2 late goals at Vicarage Road on the opening day couldn't disguise the fact that they'd let in 3 to Watford. Since then, they've won just the 3. They won 2-0 at home to Newcastle, 3-0 at home to Everton, and 1-0 at Old Trafford. In the middle of that lot, there was a 1-1 draw at home to Brentford and a 3-0 defeat at Chelsea. Their last 3 have also ended up pointless, losing as they did 2-1 at Spurs, somehow, 3-2 at home to Wolves, and 3-1 away at Arsenal. The defeat to Wolves must have been particularly galling, given that they were 2-0 up with 10 minutes left to play. This has left them with 10 points from 9 played, leaving them in 13th place. That's 9 places and 7 points behind us. They're also 6 points clear of the drop zone. Daisy, the personal assistant, with a beautiful smile from whom I no longer have to remain socially distanced, informs me that she was expected to be rather busy for this week, given that our opponents went into the window with £100 million stuffed in their pockets as a result of the sale of Grealish to Manchester City. So what exactly did Dean Smith spend the wonga on? Well, the biggest fee was the £33 million spent on Argentinian Emiliano Buendia. The 24-year-old midfielder, who has reached under-19 level with Spain and under-20 level with Argentina, was Norwich's Player of the Year last season, and Arsenal were also said to have been interested in securing the player's signature. Villa prevailed, but his form has been giving cause for concern ever since his arrival. Regular readers will be aware of this column's penchant for highlighting the more unusually named football clubs around the world, and it is with this in mind that I highlight the fact that, whilst on the books at Getafe, he spent time on loan at a club called Cultural Leonesia. The next most expensive arrival was Jamaican winger Leon Bailey. Bailey came in from Bayer Leverkusen, having been in Europe since the age of 13, his adoptive dad dragging him and his brother across the Atlantic in search of a club. After a lot of nearly signings, most of which seem to have been scuppered by the FIFA's rules on transporting minors halfway across the planet, he went through youth systems in Austria and Slovakia, and ended up at Genk, one of the clubs he had nearly signed for when he first arrived from Kingston. He did well enough there to get the Belgian Young Player of the Year award, catching the eye of Bayer Leverkusen, who sold out €20 million for his services. His Jamaican debut was somewhat delayed, the player refusing to join up with the squad until standards improved. The then Jamaican coach put the blame on Bailey's dad, claiming that he'd put a block on everything. It did look like relations had thawed enough by October 2018 for him to finally make his international bow. However, he then refused to join the squad unless his brother, then playing in the second tier in Austria, was also included. Which makes you wonder if perhaps Jordan Henderson is related to somebody who's actually any good. Bailey finally got his first cap in 2019 and has been a fixture in the squad ever since. A quarter of the Grealish bounty went on bringing Danny Ings in from Southampton. It seemed a surprising transfer. There was an air of here to stay about his arrival at St Mary's, not least because Southampton was his hometown and most of his family are there or thereabouts. However, £25 million was enough to test Southampton's resolve. I was surprised to see Daisy's note that the player is only 29 years old. He does seem to have been around forever. However, much of that time was spent at Liverpool recovering from a serious knee injury. Ashley Young returned to his former club on a free transfer from Inter Milan, with whom he spent a season and a half, following a transfer from Manchester United. His first spell with Villa started with a transfer from Watford. Him reportedly turned down a bid from ourselves, as we were in the middle of a relegation fight. In the past, he had a reputation for being a bit of a diver, so at least Villa have replaced Grealish in one respect. They picked up one loan signing in the form of England under-21 central defender Alex Tuzanbe. He arrived in a season-long deal from Manchester United. Now, Wikipedia occasionally comes up with a so-called fact that is clearly the result of somebody editing the page for a laugh. However, Daisy assures me there is genuine, verifiable photo evidence that Twanzebe, or however you pronounce it, did in fact hold the world record for clearing hungry hippos. No, I don't have a clue as to what that record was, or indeed what the hell hungry hippos is, or are. I just present the information Daisy gives me, okay. Let's move on then to the wild and wacky world of association football, shall we? And the revised Super League plans continue apace. Following Manchester United and Tottenham's example, Bayern Munich were humiliated this week, going down 5-0 to Borussia Mönchengladbach in the Cup. With Barcelona and Juventus also suffering embarrassing reverses, the third division of the proposed, well, competition isn't the word, but you know what I mean, will soon have more teams in it than the top flight. Wouldn't it be hilarious if whoever is in that top flight then stopped promotion and relegation? You know, like the organisers are planning anyway. Elsewhere, I was brought a news clipping referring to Ryan Reynolds and Rob McElhenney's plans for Wrexham. Having read through all the Premier League why not stuff, I can confirm the following. I've heard of Wrexham, but I've no idea who their owners are. Let's move on to us. Now, in the past, we've often been sequence busters for teams or players on bad runs. So it's most pleasant to report that we broke another sequence, that being Manchester City's 5-year unbeaten run in the League Cup. The opposition view this week was a mixture of Tottenham-style delusion and reasonable response. Those who used either of the phrases parked the bus or playing for penalties scored particularly well on the never mind the facts, let's rationalise the hell out of this until it makes sense to us ometer. Yeah, we got men behind the ball when they were in possession, but there again, had Vlasic and Souček had their shooting boots on, we could have had 3 goals or more of our own. As for playing for penalties, oh please. It would take a rationale on a par with some of the more out there reaches of quantum physics to be able to translate the triple substitution introducing Benrahma, Fornals and Bowen, the best 3 attacking options available on the night to us, into an attempt to shut up shop and hope for spot kicks. They'll be moaning that Areola tried to save the penalties next. Talking of whom, I thought the keeper had a splendid game. Not just in terms of shot stopping, which has always looked sound, but also in terms of confidence, decisiveness and decision making. Whereas he'd hitherto looked a little uncertain in some situations, he commanded his box superbly, coming for and getting crosses where appropriate, and staying at home when that was required. Some of his takes, whilst looking routine, were harder than they might have looked, and the effect that they had in taking the sting out of things cannot be overestimated. Young Johnson also had a fine game. Still no goals conceded with him in the side apparently, but there again, he usually keeps a clean sheet against these opponents. However, overall you cannot help but note the strength of that performance as a team rather than by singling out individuals. When you play City, you need all 11 to play as a unit. As soon as somebody goes off-piste, they'll overrun you. So the fact that we remained so organised throughout was particularly impressive. The late introduction of Soufal means that we're down to Alex Kral on the sick list. Hopefully, he isn't feeling nearly as lousy as I did after my flu jab earlier this week. I mean, what's the point in having a flu jab if it gives you flu? Anyhow, one would expect Rice, Antonio and Fabianski to return. Yes, we beat Manchester City without those 3. And the form of Ben Johnson has given Mr. Moyes a nice problem to think about at right back now that Soufal is fit again. Oh, Mr. Johnson, if you're reading this, by the way, Manchester City are missing one Raheem Sterling and would be grateful for any information you can give as to his whereabouts. So we move on then to the prediction. On the one hand, we have a side testing positive for confidence with a team spirit second to none. On the other, we have a team on a 3-match losing streak. This has all the hallmarks of one of those sequence busters I mentioned earlier. But not this time. There will be occasions where our confidence and optimism will need to be reined in a little, but I don't think this is one of those occasions. So the £2.50 I was going to spend on beer duty down at the Swan and Super in Junction will instead go on a wager on an away win. Make that 3-1 to us then, please, Mr. Winston. Enjoy the game.
Yes. Big knees up Mother Brown, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm regularly on the general discussion page There's always someone who's got some information, so I love it. Yeah, it's great. Yes, it's excitement surrounded by imminent disappointment. That's what it mostly is.
Get on the forum at kumb.com. Come on, you irons.